We are really excited for this episode today because we are going to talk about a subject in which the first episode we ever did about this subject has gotten the biggest response that we've ever had in our entire podcast history. And we're talking about episode 157, where we had Claire Lerner on. And we really opened up about something that we've both experienced, which is having a child that has bigger reactions. This has been part of our lives for a long time. What happened for me in that episode truly was understanding that I wasn't alone. And that was such a monumental shift for me because what I have dealt with as a parent has been so isolating. Like the big reactions, the having to leave somewhere because your child can't get on the right track. It has really been a big part of my parenting. And at the time, especially because that was 3 years ago, that episode, it was just so hard. And I think when you are dealing with one of these kiddos, something that we think as humans is that it's eventually like gonna go away. Like they're eventually gonna be like cured from it. And in my experience, that isn't true. But we wanted to have this episode because we have come so far. Our family has come so far. Our big reactor has come so far. So it's this balance of there is a lot of hope. Like if you are back in my shoes 4 years ago, I felt like my hope was pretty low. There's a lot of hope, but it's still, we're going to talk today. There's certain things that bring it back out of them.
Yeah, and I think that every kiddo, even in the spirited category, still is a little bit different. So Amy and I both have, as she had mentioned, spirited kiddos, but they react to different things. Their reactions look different. And when we did this episode, the DMs that came in, Amy, I remember just like breaking down on that episode and then hearing the different things that came in of people saying, I didn't think that anybody else had that. Like, this is the first time that I'm hearing somebody else speak up about this, because if you're close to families who have a spirited kiddo, or if you have one yourself, you see it often. But then a lot of times you're also shielding yourself from those situations. Like, you're not going into those situations being like, okay, I know that this is going to maybe bring up an episode. This might be a tricky situation for this kiddo. And I know for us, at least, we just wouldn't do this in those situations. So we wouldn't put ourselves in some of the events. We said no to some things even early on because we knew that it was going to be a trigger. I will say, yeah, 3 years later, that episode was back in 2022. We're learning the ropes as parents, and we're also learning about our kiddos. And also, these kiddos are learning about themselves. So I think that that's a really big growth opportunity for everyone involved, is that those kiddos can also learn, okay, this is what works for me. This doesn't work for me. This is what worked for my sister or my brother. This worked for my sibling. This works for my sister's best friend, but it doesn't work for me. And I think that was probably the hardest part for me, is that everything felt so defeating. And I remember when we recorded that episode, I felt like I had tried so many things. The stuff that I'd worked with our other kids wasn't working with this child. And I just kept on thinking, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with this kid? And not knowing what to do, because at that point, it just felt so defeating, trying something and over again, having it not work. But what we learned is that sometimes you do just have to make the situation better for the kiddo. And it does help a lot. It's harder in the moment as a parent to always have to be figuring that part out, but it really, really does make the situation better.
So one thing that we've done, our family, since that episode is we went on a therapy journey. And I wish I could report that that was like really game changing for us. But what happened was, I feel like the type of therapy that we did wasn't a perfect fit for the type of kiddo that we had. So we were doing talk therapy. Obviously, like I worked with our team. They're the ones that like gave us the therapist they gave us and gave us the type of therapy they gave us. And I do think that a lot of centers right now are just they're so overwhelmed and they can't accommodate like every single patient the way that they probably would like to. But we were able to get in. And I was telling Abby when we were preparing for this episode, the best thing that came from therapy was tips to parent. And it was not like the actual therapy itself, because what I've learned since then, and I know one of the therapists in an anxiety episode brought this up, is that talk therapy is really hard for kids. He absolutely hated it. It was very triggering every time we had to go. He felt like we had to go because there was something wrong with him. Even though the therapist and we did a really good job of explaining like therapy doesn't mean that there's like something wrong with you. Our whole family went. So it was sometimes just Drew and I, sometimes it was me and the kiddo, sometimes it was all the brothers. Like we really mixed it up. because one of our goals was to make sure that he didn't think he was alone and he was the problem. Like, it's just our whole family needed to learn how to deal with these behaviors better. That I'm not kidding you, one time we didn't even make it into the therapist's office because he was so upset that he was there, that he was running in this field. It was very safe, but he was running in this field and he was so upset. And I went in and I got the therapist. I'm like, I don't think I'll be able to get him into this office. Like, this is not, he like absolutely refuses to come in. Like, I could pick him up, but he will be literally kicking and screaming. And so she was like, honestly, let's just go out. And we watched him. And she's like, honestly, if you look at this situation, he's actually handling his anger in a really good way. He's definitely a person that needs gross motor movements, which means he needs really big movements to process the way he's feeling. So she's like, he's actually doing perfect. He's not doing anything wrong. He's not harming anything. He's just really upset. He's outside and he's running around. And so her and I just stood out there for the whole session, watching him and making sure he was safe, and then also chatting. And so from her, a lot of what we learned is that with these types of kiddos, they can always go harder than you can go. So in parenting, you think like, okay, I've got to set the boundary. This is absolutely unacceptable behavior. Like, you start to get triggered by what they're doing. But what she was reminding us is like, that kid always has another gear. Like, if they are in one of these zones where they're seeing red, they can always go harder than you can ever go. So we really learned that with him, it's not even gentle parenting, you guys. It's not like you're feeling angry. She's like, talking to him like that will make him mad. You do not do that. Your job is to keep him safe. If he wants to go outside and because he's really mad and run around, you make sure that whatever he's choosing is safe. You know, one of our big things at the time was after school, there was like a lot of brother fighting, and this guy would get pretty mad. She's like, you need more of a schedule. You need him to come home. You need to, as the parent, have an idea of what the afternoon is looking like, because it's a wide open blank space. Like, a lot of kids don't do good with that. So we need to make it so their bedrooms are their safe spots. They have a plan for what's happening after school. She just had these really small suggestions. Another thing at the time that was really not going well was bedtime. And it wasn't even necessarily the laying down part, it was the brushing the teeth. The brothers would literally be hitting each other.
So frustrating.
5 seconds before bed, and then someone's crying, someone else is mad. We're doing our best to separate them. And she goes, why don't you just brush their teeth at different times? It's like, literally, because we always, as a family, would go up, brush our teeth, read a book, go to bed. A lot of it for us was separation, having structured time. We know that for him, sleep is a big trigger. Like, a lack of sleep is I would say the biggest trigger for his behaviors is still to this day a lack of sleep. So as parents, we have to look at our plans and make sure that we're working with that trigger and knowing if we have him short on sleep, the chances that this is going to come out is way, way bigger. And at the time, so this was last summer, we were in therapy. She said, if you come home on Sunday, late afternoon from your cabin, the kids, all of them, have no time to process their emotions. They have no time to debrief from the weekend. They have no transition time. And so then you're sending them back to summer school on Monday, and the behavior is going to come out sometime, especially with this type of kiddo. So one thing I learned is that they need times where they're not busy. They need time to transition between one thing and the next. So all of these things have helped our family immensely. And like I was saying in the beginning, his big reactions and his anger has spread out so much. Like, the goal in our family at this point cannot be zero. Like, it just can't be. It's not, it's going to set us up for disappointment. But what used to happen multiple times a week, I would go so far to say sometimes now there's weeks where there's no behavior issue. You know, it might be every other week. Like, the really big behaviors have really minimized to a point where it feels so much better. Now, the flip side of that, and I know Abby might talk about this too, is that when they do come up, it's almost jarring now. Like it's just, you're like, my gosh, like, that's why I want to warn you. Like, I think getting in the mindset that you're all the way through it and it's never coming back is going to be too hard. I think you have to be aware that this is something that for us, it feels like he was born with. And so as parents, we're giving him all of these tools to help him deal with. But do I think that it's, completely out of his system at this point in his life? No. Maybe at some other point, yes. But I'm no longer searching for zero. I'm no longer searching for we're completely over this. It's more just looking at the risks, looking at the triggers and minimizing those as his parents. And then also on the flip side, giving him the tools to help him move through.
And I did think it was so helpful when Claire brought up that it is part of their DNA, because you can think that they are going to grow out of it, or that you can just do something and snap your fingers, and then this is the thing that's going to make a change. And I thought it was so helpful when she brought up that they just feel and they see everything without a filter. And when she explained that part of it, I was like, oh, that's the light bulb moment. Everything feels overwhelming because they don't have that filter on. And what might be something that is very, very small and minimal and not over sensory overload for one kiddo, it can be completely different for another one. And you brought the schedules. And I do think that anytime, especially with our kiddo, with changes in transitions or just changes in routine, that's when the triggers happen. I mean, it can be something as simple as a haircut change or cutting a sandwich a different way. Maybe it's moving around furniture. But then those types of things, all of a sudden, there's this meltdown. And you've seen it too, where this kid will just keep on asking the same thing over and over again. Can I please have my sandwich cut a different way? Can I please have my sandwich cut a different way?
Like it's so interesting and it's so important to the conversation. Our big reactors are very different.
Right.
Yours is a lot more sensitive to changes in certain things. Ours has these triggers where when he's mad, he'll go to like a 10. It's very specific things, but he gets really upset, but he's not sensitive to everything.
Oh, yeah. And it does feel like that with ours. I mean, even a daily, if the morning routine is slightly different, all of a sudden, maybe he wakes up a little bit later, or our dog wakes up our kids every day. If the dog comes in and goes into the siblings' room first instead of their room, it's just those small things to us. They seem so small, but it's part of their routine. And I think that that's what makes it so hard, is that you can think as a parent that you're on the right ball, you're doing everything right. And then you realize, oh, it's these small things that do make a really big difference in some of these kiddos' lives. But the transitions, one thing that we're doing with it is, especially with the new school year coming up, new sports coming up, we just sit down and we talk through the schedule. We say, this is what it's going to look like. This is exactly what it's going to look like. And there's going to be questions back and forth. We'll repeat ourselves several times saying the exact same thing, but we know that's part of the process. And we also know that if we take the time to actually sit down and talk through that schedule change, show exactly what it's going to look like, sometimes outlandish details we brought up, like, oh, what if all of a sudden, grandma flies in from somewhere and there's nobody at home? Okay, well, this won't happen. That won't happen. But what if it does happen? Okay, well, then we're going to have the neighbor come over and they'll be waiting here. I mean, outlandish things do come up, and we just talk about it because that's what makes this kiddo feel more safe. So, and I don't know exactly where it's coming from. I think about it in my own sense of, is it not feeling safe? Is it feeling like they just got one thing down and then all of a sudden things are changing? Like, where does it come from? And I guess it's not the point of it. The point of it is to try to help this kiddo through it. But I do like to know the reason why. And if there's a why, then I can make changes on the outcome. And just sometimes it doesn't work that way. It was hard for me. It was hard for me to try to go through this process. I won't say it's perfect. Like Amy said too, it's a progress. So we are very, very happy with the progress that we're making. And I know that every school year, every new transition, every new sports schedule will bring its own set of differences. And then we'll work our skill set and we'll try some new things.
What's interesting is just even hearing you talk, because both of us resonated, and we can put this one in the show notes. I don't remember the number. Kiddo anxiety episode.
Yes,
both of us are like, I feel like there's a little anxiety at play. Obviously, we're not professionals, but it just seems like, and then when you're describing that and talking about it, it's like, okay, well, even as an adult, someone that suffered from anxiety before, you can't just tell an adult, stop worrying about it.
Don't worry
You're
about
fine.
it. Yeah.
Why are you scared to turn left? Like, it just is the type of thing where that's when you just have to pull some empathy back in and be like, what is realistic for this kid? He is probably not going to behave in the same way as maybe another sibling, but all we can do is work with this kiddo that we have and give him the best tools that we
Mhm.
can. And honestly, for both of us, sometimes it is hard and sometimes it's exhausting. I also think it's the most rewarding parenting that I've personally done because to see the changes, like to see, okay, mom and dad care so much about you that they're going to try to figure out how to parent in a
Right.
different way
Right.
and learn these skills and tap into these resources. And then you're going to be able to function better in this world because you're showing us like you're doing awesome. I know some kids and our friend really struggles with this. I was talking to my pediatrician about this too. He's like, you know what? I feel like you guys are in a great spot because he is only doing this at home. Not that that's the gold standard, but he's like, think about it, Amy. He's able to function in school and do
Yeah.
great, and the
Yeah.
behaviors don't come out at school. He's able to function in sports and be a good teammate. And like the one safe place he has is where it can come out. But that's like that's
Mhm.
great progress. He's like,
Mhm.
I see other people where school's hard, sports are hard, home life is hard. If you have one of those kiddos, like we deeply are thinking about you because that would be so hard, if no place felt like, okay, they
Yeah.
at least they can get through this. So it's interesting when I'm talking to my pediatrician too. He's like, I can't tell you how many boys, he said boys, he sees that have this. Like it just seems like it's common and we really aren't alone.
We'll even bring up the different places, and it like brought tears to my eyes because we did have a kiddo that was tough in those
Yeah.
situations, and it wasn't pushing and hitting and kicking every single day, but it would
Mhm.
happen once in a while, and it came as such a shock when it
Yeah.
did, and then we didn't know how to fix it when we were away. And it did take going to the principal's office, being put into
Yeah.
the principal's office. And that was, I mean, this kiddo came home and instantly was like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
And their sibling, talked about it too, because on the bus, it was, I mean, it was a big deal. And I don't know if
Oh,
it was
getting
from,
sent to the principal's office in our school district is
is,
like truly the kids. I mean, the adults, I wouldn't say make a huge deal of it, but like who got sent to the
yes,
principal's
the
office.
the block was talking about it, the
Yeah.
bus was talking
Yeah.
about it, and that was one of the things. It wasn't perfect after that, but that was one of the things that all of a sudden that school year went so much better after that happened, because this child was so scared about going to
Yeah.
the principal's office again and being humiliated in front of his friends, having that sit down conversation with the principal. But even with summer sports, we were nervous about signing up because the last year didn't go very well. If Colin wasn't the coach, very specifically, that if he was traveling that night, for instance, this child wouldn't even go into the field sometimes. So it was really hard thinking, okay, is this going to happen again? Will we be in the same position again? Will we be sitting on the sidelines, while he looks and watches all of his friends play? Like, that's not what we're signing up for. That's not what he wants, but it's the reality for so many people. And so if you are in that position right now, I'm not going to say that it'll always get better, but I think that some things, once you start working with your kiddo and just seeing, okay, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, even if it worked with other kids. Like, that's the biggest part, is that I thought I had it down because it was working. The parenting books were working. Everything was working well. And then, like you said, the biggest flex, like when you finally do learn a new skill set and it's working and they are so happy and they are learning and they are confident and bringing things up again of, I can do this, mom, I can do this. Thank you. They might not say those words, but in their actions, it just is such a beautiful thing.
I think one thing too that I would say to parents that are coming after us is don't be afraid to give yourself and your family a break from things. So before, when we would go to big gatherings, it was almost always a trigger, to the point where it was really stressful for me to be in that situation because, especially at the time, I was the one that would always work him through his big emotions and have to take him like out of the setting and work with them. And now at this age, and so sometimes I'd be like, I can't do this. Like I'm
Mhm.
not going. I just can't. Don't be afraid to give yourself a break every once in a while. If you know something's a trigger and you just don't feel like you have the capacity to go through it, I wouldn't worry about sitting a couple things out. That being said, now we're able to go to big gatherings, and I would say 8 times out of 10 it's fine now, and more than fine, it's like great almost. And that's you've got to look around and see the progress. Like,
Yeah.
don't focus on the two times. Like, one time I just had to go over to the sidewalk and we were just sitting on the sidewalk and just kind of calming ourselves down. And that was totally fine. And we were able to return to party. So look at those big reactions as failures. You also have to look at how far you've come as a family, because 8 out of 10 times going well, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I would have taken that every
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So I've got to see how now things are a lot better and give all of us credit for it. The other thing that's happened between that episode and this episode is, coincidentally or not, both of our big reactors have had their tonsils out. For mine, he had really terrible sleep apnea. And so we're thinking, with the doctor, his tonsils were practically touching and they were that way for about a year. And he's not getting the sleep he needs. And then we felt like we were on this vicious cycle of he's not getting the sleep he needs, so his behaviors are not where we want them to be, and we're just on this cycle. So we felt like, because clinically what he's showing with his tonsils and his adenoids, coupled with the behaviors, have been an issue, this seems like the best choice for our family. I will say his sleep seems way better. Here's the thing. It was like he'd wake up in the morning and he wouldn't look well rested. That was a big one. And then he was waking up super early. He's still our earliest riser, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. Like, he was waking up in the 5 a.m. hour for years of his life, which that's pretty early for a kid. And now he'll definitely make it into the 6 o'clock hour, every once in a while into the 7 o'clock hour. So I do think that has been a really big improvement. Obviously, you guys have to work with your own healthcare teams. When I went, and I will say this because I think it'd be helpful, this all got to a breaking point about a year and a half ago, like this in the spring last year, where I made an appointment with the pediatrician. I took videos of this kiddo snoring. I made an appointment with the pediatrician and I said, here's everything I need to discuss: the snoring and pauses in his breathing, his behavior. Here are the examples. And I was just really adamant, like, we need a plan. I think as parents, we all feel better with a plan. And it reached a point where what I'm doing isn't working. Like, I need help in other places. And I love our pediatrician. He's very straightforward. You're not going to get coddled with this guy, but you are going to get really great care. And he made a plan where he's like, okay, we're going to ENT. We're doing this consult. We're also at the same time getting therapy, because I don't care if it's just the lack of sleep or not. Like, we need to make sure that we can get this kiddo some tools so that he's in a better place. He assessed him for everything. We had to have all of his teachers fill out things for things like ADHD. There's all these tools and tests you can use. So that was the process we went through. I add that because I know there's some people listening that you're feeling like I was feeling about a year and a half ago, where you're like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I need something to give and something to change. And so now I'm sitting here after being through all of that in a much better place.
Yeah, that tonsillectomy. And I know that some people will say your kiddo can be completely changed after it, and that can be the truth. And for others, it doesn't change as many things. I do think it's interesting that both of our kiddos had sleep issues before the tonsillectomy. Ours was an oversleeper. So I remember even after New Year's, I mean, it was almost 1 p.m. still sleeping. And that was the point where we were thinking there's something going on. Like, there's definitely something going on. Reoccurring strep. I won't bring up all the different things. I would share about it in the Patreon episode, but not on air here. But there was just so many things that changed behind the scenes once that tonsillectomy happened. Things that we didn't even realize were tied to either poor sleep or not breathing enough. And so thankful, right? So thankful. At the same time, it was really hard to get that surgery scheduled. Very, very hard. It just took a very long time in order to get there. So we were kind of sitting there waiting, hoping that another sickness wouldn't happen. And now we're about to go through another tonsillectomy in our family. So I'm even wondering what kinds of changes are going to happen with this child now that we have a whole another surgery up ahead. But there's some small things that we can do. And I think that Amy, in this episode, we're bringing up some small things that we can do with these kiddos, and then also some bigger things that you might not even know are on the table. One thing that we are doing that we know works really well is really direct one-on-one full attention. And I know some people talk about the miracle 10 minutes.
These kids are more like miracle hour.
Like the 10 minutes was not working. Yes, a therapist could sit with me and I could confidently say, look, there is no phone. There is a one-on-one eye contact. There, I am not thinking about something else. I am answering every single question, and the 10 minutes wouldn't work. So it is a lot longer, but having that one-on-one contact, making the funny voices, asking the questions for follow-up, we have been doing so much more of that, even to the point where it was hard for this child to fall asleep on their own. And so this is just a couple of minutes before bed, but every single time we play in their room. It's the most ridiculous games. Am I having fun with it? Not always, but they are having so much fun with this play. And it's just interesting because you can look at something and think it's the smallest little thing. But like I've been saying over and over again, it's such a big deal to these kids.
Kids need more attention.
So much attention.
That's absolutely what we found. And one thing I think Claire said in that episode is they will ask for love in the most unloving way. So it will look like anger. Yeah. It will look like, maybe being physical with a sibling. It will look like the last thing I want to do. And this was something that Drew and I really had to work on, especially Drew, is like he felt like the kid was getting rewarded for bad behavior. And I said, it's not the reward, it's what he needs. Like he needs our attention and love so that the behavior gets better. Of course, we were always giving him attention and love. I'm telling you guys, like they need more than their siblings. And that's just difficult, especially if you've got, like us, like you've got a family of 3 kids. It can be hard to get everyone what they need, but giving them more attention really helps them. And it's just a surefire strategy. One other quick tip I'll share, and Abby and I've talked about this recently, is they really take things to heart. You cannot make promises to this type of kid and not keep them. They will talk about it for a month. If you say, promise we can go bowling, and then something comes up and you can't deliver. I know, like, there's memes about this. Other kids have this. They have it where it's burned in their memory and it feels very offensive if you don't follow through. Yeah. So I would say be really careful with what you say and what you can deliver, because they're going to hold you to it every time.
And making sure that it's not just the parents that know that. Anybody offering that up, and making sure that everyone in this situation knows that when you say something, you need to mean it or don't say it. And I would say the same thing with the attention. This summer, our nanny has had some very special time with this child because siblings have been in other areas. And those days are honestly so magical when we get home. Like last week was one of the best weeks that we have had because our nanny was one-on-one, and this can't happen all the time, but one-on-one for 2 hours in the afternoon with this child. And we know that that's not normal, but how much easier it made it for the nights every single night that week. It could be something as simple. We got a goldfish. Like this goldfish is literally the lifeline of our family right now. These kiddos do not die, little buddy. Do not die. We upgraded this little fishy's tank. So hopefully they'll be with us for a while, but just having something special to look forward to, having somebody to be with. I mean, the fish obviously isn't talking back, but it swims around. It looks like it's engaging with you. This child is obsessed with this tiny fish. This fish looks like it's giving attention. It's, you're spending time with them. It's so cute watching it. And obviously the fish isn't talking back. It's not giving the feedback that this kid needs every single day, but it's been a really good step in the right direction. I just say that because I was putting so much pressure on myself as the parent, especially the parent that's home more, to be like, I'm the only one that can give the attention. It's on me to give the one-on-one attention. It's on me if I'm not doing the eye contact. It's on me. That's on me. But in reality, it could be a play date. It could be, having a kid over. It can be going to a friend's house. It could be a nanny. It could be a special friends. When you guys come over, it's so special. Even watching, you or Drew just spend a little extra time with this kid, having your boys spend extra time with this kid. It really can come from a lot of different areas.
So if you have a spirited child, I would say hang in there. Yeah. It is, like I said, honestly, it's so rewarding, the bond that you can build with them. There are things that work. The regular parenting advice doesn't work. And I think that's where we started, is it just became so frustrating because things that worked for the other siblings or everyone else, they might not work for your kid. But that just means that you have to figure out what does. And there's really no other option.
There's really no other option.
You have to work with your child figure out what will help them the most and just hang in there, because I think it gets a lot better and you're helping develop them into someone that is going to be just fine.
Yeah. A little send off. One thing that I will say often in my head during those difficult moments is great kid, difficult moment. And I think that just helps to just release some of the pressure that we might put on these kids, some of the pressure that we might be putting on ourselves, and realize that the situation can get better. And this kiddo, they are feeling with their whole heart. It's not a bad kiddo. It's just a really tricky situation. So if you're there, we have been there.
We are there.
We are there.
Go back there.
And we'll make sure to link the Claire Lerner episode that we keep on going back to, because we know that one will give you a lot of great tips as well.